706 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. And you're on Charles Moskowitz's Money Info right here on WPSL and worldwide on TuneIn. Charles, welcome back.
Thanks, Greg. I just want to make mention that I have new addresses and a Discord room with 3,000 members, and you can go to www.greatwizeoz with Z's, GreatWizeoz.com, and you can sign up there for a free trial. You'll also have the link to get to the Discord room. And I've added a bunch of services since I was on last. I now do a pre-open and closing comment every day, which, as you know, is carried on your Facebook page and goes out on my YouTube channel, either under Great Wise Oz or Charles Moskowitz. I am also doing a daily note, which is a synopsis, a little bit more information than the closing or opening comments, and that goes out to subscribers, and you can also sign up for that. And, of course, we do the trade alerts that are now delivered through WhatsApp. And I just want to shout out to all of those people in the Discord room. In case you don't understand what the Discord room is all about, it's literally a trading room for exchange of ideas, and I'm in it all day, every day. But more than that, the members interact with each other. So there's a great deal of education and information there. And again, if you go to GreatWizeOz.com with the Z's, you'll get all of the information and the links to go everywhere.
I love it. Great Wise Oz. How'd you come up with that name?
Behind the curtain.
Yeah. How'd you come up with that name?
I honestly don't even remember, except that I've used an emoticon of the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse in it, and I've used it for years. And so when I needed a name for the new service, it just popped up.
That's great. That is absolutely amazing. And for folks listening for the first time, of course, you were on the air with Mike King back in the day for
10 years.
Yeah, you were on for 10 years. Yeah, amazing. You go all the way back to the blue 60s as far as investing. Yeah. So, you bring a wealth of experience.
So my question of the day is, now that they've thrown out Exxon, which has been in the Dow since 1928, and gotten rid of Raytheon, which is a combination of Raytheon and UTX, and added Honeywell, and added Amgen in place of Pfizer, we now have an industrial average that is 30% tech and less than that industrials. So I'm just wondering when they're going to change the name of that.
Yeah.
Not really reflective of what it is anymore. Maybe just call it the Dow Jones Averages.
Yeah, because if you look at it, I mean, NASDAQ has got a bunch of folks in there. Of course, they're all mostly tech-related.
Yeah. And the transports and the utilities haven't changed at all.
Yeah.
So those are okay, but, to call in an industrial average with, probably 15% industrials is not really explained to people what it's all about.
Well, there's so much going on with technology. I know 60 Minutes had that story. It was a repeat, but it was a great story on the semis, driverless semis,
Yep.
which are testing right here in Florida. Great. So, yeah, it's.
Wait until they put those big double semis on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Without a driver.
Oh, boy. Yeah, we've got enough problems with the drivers here on our Florida roadways, that's for sure.
So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to try and bring some emerging companies to the show. And today we have the chief scientist from Jan1, the symbol for which is Jan, Jan. And I'm sure he'll be on very shortly, but the fact is, this is a little stock that we discussed in that Discord room, around $3. I think I posted a chart of it when I initially bought it at $3.36, and it's a really interesting combination of companies. Makes absolutely no sense, and they're going to take care of that, as I'm sure they'll tell you. It's actually made up of a recycling company for appliances and a medical company. And what the medical company does, Dr. Soin will be on shortly, what the medical company does is it has a non-opioid treatment for chronic pain, things like peripheral artery disease or diabetes, where you get a neuropathy in your feet and it becomes painful to walk. So these are people who have a chronic disease and who maybe don't want to or are afraid to take an opioid for fear of addiction, which is certainly a monstrous problem these days. So they have this non-opioid, and they're about to test it shortly in a phase 2 trial, and it's pretty impressive. It's impressive because who doesn't have somebody in their life who has been affected by the opioid crisis? It's a real problem.
Oh, yeah. And, the show that's on at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays, orthopedic group, Florida Orthopedic Specialists, they have really tracked this thing, and they're using less and less and less to almost nothing now as far as opioids going into the surgery and coming out. So, it's amazing.
It's become, a gigantic problem. It's so severe. It's not an inner city problem anymore. It's not a problem for, just kids. It's young adults. It's seniors. There's a lot going on, and we have massive medical costs for addiction. I'm going to just hazard a guess here because I don't know, but I'm sure that the issues of opioid addiction and everything else surrounding it are, they must rival in the public eye even COVID. COVID's here. It'll come. It'll probably eventually go. But the fact is, this opioid epidemic has been growing for 20 or 30 years, and there just seems to be no end in sight.
Yeah, that and it's and the poor folks that get hooked on that. It's awful.
And by the way, Jan 1 is $7.40 right now.
Whoa.
So there is some acknowledgement about it, and they are spinning off the appliance recycling business, and will just be, a single focus company, which will really help them, I think.
Yeah, I would think so. It's like it seems to be just such an odd combination, but yeah, it's what Dr. Soin is just a total expert when it comes to pain and yeah, I'm just can't wait to chat with him a little bit on this. But going back to you, this whole room thing that you've got going, I think is fascinating. And how long have you really been doing that?
I'd rather have him really discuss that, but he's been involved with this clinic in Ohio for quite a while, and he's been the recipient of the Patient's Choice Award. That's given to like the top 1% of physicians in the country, and he's the author of a book called Curing America: Look Inside America's Failing Healthcare System, which is certainly something that, now that I'm 70, greatly concerns me.
I don't even remember 70, but go ahead. Oh.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah, well, the one thing this COVID-19 thing has done to the country is the awareness of how really the national health, the state health departments, and even down to the local health departments were not prepared for a true pandemic.
No.
And it's
it's I am, as most people in my room know, and anybody who reads the letter knows, that I am particularly non-political or apolitical. But the issues involving everything that's going on transcend the quote political issues. But the market is really based on sentiment, and nothing changes the sentiment faster than a political or geopolitical event. Again, not a political statement, but it is somewhat unfair to heap all of the issue on the president. Doesn't matter who he is, although this one is certainly trying. But it's like saying that George Bush was responsible for 9/11, or, it's as absurd as saying, well, whoever was the mayor of San Francisco in 1906 should have known better. So, that part of the political spectrum is somewhat interesting, and it is really tough, and the pandemic is, it's like, when you rear-end somebody. They call them accidents for a reason. There's no intent, and, how you handle it going forward is really much more the issue than, where we are at any moment in time with something that is as unforeseen as this.
Right. And, the whole concept, when you think about a worldwide pandemic, that is mind-boggling. That something like this, be it bats or whatever what the carrier was, just traveled around the world as quickly as it did. That is truly amazing to me.
Yeah, and the Chinese didn't do us any favors by holding off the information.
No, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, they were their own worst enemies in this thing. But you think, I know, down here yesterday, the governor was, and he's taking shots from all sorts of folks for trying to open up Florida, and we're going to have football. The seating capacity at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami is going to be 13,000. So
how do they do that? I mean, do they take the first 13,000 in, or do they give people seat numbers or ticket numbers for the people who have season tickets or stuff? That seems like it's going to be a big mess.
It is going to be a mess. Yeah. Well, and I would imagine it's virtually season ticket holders only apply, is my guess. And the story that was on just before you got on CBS News was the University of Tennessee is going to, of course, they've got a 100,000 seat stadium. They're going to have 23,000 seats for their number one donors and season ticket holders. So, and what's fascinating with all of this, Charles, and you come from a real egghead.
Yeah, we have nothing but season ticket holders.
Yeah, you've got,
we've been sold out. So
yeah. Well, what's interesting is that the eggheads at Purdue University have done a marvelous job of virtually redesigning all these football stadiums, and they're coming up with and usually it's somewhere in the vicinity of 18 to 20% of capacity. But when you redesign escalators and all the other stuff to keep people apart, I just think that's going to be amazing if they can pull this off. It works in a bubble.
I think Dr. Soin may be on with us. Are you there, Doctor?
Yes.
Oh,
good. Hello. You didn't announce yourself, so I couldn't figure out where you were.
Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted to call or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And did I pronounce your name correctly?
You pronounced my name perfectly. Thank you.
All right. Great. That's great. Well,
so we've been talking about the company and the fact that they're going to split the two companies up, and mentioned some of your CV. But I'd like to just turn it over to you and give you kind of free range for as long as you can stay.
Oh, sure. Thank you, everyone. My name is Amol Soyan. I'm a pain management physician in Dayton, Ohio. I grew up in Dayton. I went to a lot of school. I've got 5 college degrees. 2 of them are from Ivy League schools, Dartmouth and Brown. And I trained at the Cleveland Clinic, which at the time was and still is the largest and, in my opinion, the best facility for pain management in the United States in terms of advanced technology. I moved to Dayton, and shortly after I moved here, we really started to feel pressure of the opioid crisis. And people were overdosing, as you mentioned, all walks of life, young, old, all races. And opioid prescriptions and deaths became the leading cause of death in young people, surpassing motor vehicle accidents in our state. And Ohio is somewhat representative demographically of the entire country, which is why it's such a swing state politically. But we have rural and urban areas and a lot of racial diversity. So it's like a snapshot of the United States. But despite all these new regulations to limit opioid prescribing, people still have a lot of pain. And we have really limited the number of opioids that are prescribed by doctors. However, the total number of overdose deaths continue to increase. Right? And that's interesting because it seems that people may be turning to other illicit drugs to treat their pain, or they may be trying to treat their addiction. And so Jan 1 has some unique technology that could help not only the opioid crisis, but treat pain. They have a medication called Jan 101, but essentially its ingredient is something called sodium nitrite that's been studied for a long time, been multiple human trials on it, and I've personally ran some clinical trials on diabetic neuropathic pain. And we've noticed that this medication can improve blood flow and vascular function in people that have something called peripheral artery disease, but also it's a very potent painkiller. And this painkiller has a very unique property, and that is it is non-addicting, it is non-narcotic, it doesn't make you sleepy or drowsy. And this type of medicine is something that I think not only patients, but physicians in general have been looking for a long time. And if you were to say, oh, is there a holy grail in pharmaceuticals, I think a non-addicting or sedating painkiller would be that. If you ask any of your physician friends or colleagues if there was a drug out there that could treat pain effectively without, those side effects, would they prescribe it? I think it would be a resounding yes.
Doctor, it seems amazing to me how it seemed like back in the day, if you will, and I know you're amazingly young. You've done a lot in your short years, but peripheral artery disease, we didn't know much about that at all, and now all of a sudden it's like that seems to be exploding.
Yeah, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Not only increased awareness medically, but just the changing of our own personal health in the United States. People are living longer than they've lived before. On the same token, we've all gotten a little bit heavier. Obesity is a problem. Our diets aren't the same as they were a generation or two ago in terms of healthy, non-processed foods, and some of that is causing some of these chronic diseases to increase in prevalence.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, and there hasn't been a lot of great treatment options for peripheral artery disease, so this is kind of a unique treatment. And there's a third pillar to this medication that I think is tremendously exciting. I mean, not only the pain aspect and the peripheral artery disease, it's the fact that there could be an opportunity to help patients with COVID-19. And I heard you guys discussing that earlier on this show, but we're struggling a lot with COVID-19 because some of the aspect of the disease is an enigma. I mean, we're treating it like it's a very aggressive flu virus, but what it does to the body is unique. I mean, the common cold or flu virus doesn't do the same damage to the heart, lungs, and vascular system that COVID-19 is doing, that's leading to death and long-term complications to people. And part of that is, what if instead of looking at COVID-19 as a very severe strain of flu, what if in fact COVID-19 is a disease that affects the vascular system? And given that Jan 101's product can help treat the vascular system, I think there's an opportunity, not as a cure of the disease per se, but an opportunity to prevent some of the end organ damage that we're seeing from COVID-19. End organ damage, maybe even death. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for this drug because I anticipate COVID-19 or a variant of that disease is going to be around for a while, even if we have a vaccine, just because, viruses mutate and you can get reinfection and that kind of stuff. So having an opportunity to prevent someone from having long-term damage to their organs would be very compelling. And the drug is a pill that someone takes, twice a day, so it's pretty easy to integrate into your lifestyle.
Yeah, I have a friend who is down in Florida who writes articles for me every once in a while for the Market Letter, who has been telling me about sodium nitrite and the fact that it dramatically helps with oxygenating the blood and helping the vascular system. And, I've been hearing about it for a couple of months now. And in fact, I've had articles of his in my weekly letter. But yeah, he's very big on sodium nitrite.
That's great to hear. And I will tell you that I've personally ran clinical trials. I did a phase 2 trial that was randomized. It was placebo-controlled. It was blinded. So myself and the patients didn't know whether they were getting a placebo or the real medicine, which is helpful to have solid science. And we saw significant improvements in many aspects of vascular function. But we also saw something very unique, and that is in a higher dose, an 80 milligram dose of sodium nitrite, for example, we also saw that patients' nerve conduction velocity improved. And what that means is that when you have pain or diabetic nerve pain or whatever, your nerve isn't firing as fast. This drug, after some time, had shown to improve that nerve health, which suggests that possibly this drug not only improves the vascular health, but it could also possibly improve nerve function, which would be a very unique opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what I found interesting was that after he started telling me, and after I read the first of his articles that were in the actual Weekly Strategies Market Letter, that I started hearing ads on the radio and on TV for all manner of sodium nitrite, with different delivery systems. Somebody's got, a chewable gummy, somebody's got a pill to take, somebody's got, a water-soluble that you just put in a glass of water that you drink in the morning. I mean, it's, all of a sudden I'm really hearing a lot about it.
Yeah, and you probably have. One thing that's interesting is, if you've ever eaten a bologna sandwich or bacon, a lot of the meats are cured with sodium nitrite, and that's how a lot of people are familiar with sodium nitrite initially. You could purchase sodium nitrite if you wanted to cure meat, for example, on Amazon even today, if you wanted to. One of the challenges is, to get the amount that you need to see true physiologic effects would be very difficult. The quantity that you'd have to consume to actually see a measurable response would be difficult to do through a gummy or anything you hear on the radio or see on the radio. Right. And if you were to take that much of it, it would actually cause a drop in blood pressure that could give you a headache or cause problems for you. So the JAN 101 technology actually is a time-released formulation, and it's a proprietary formulation of the drug that we've tested in humans to verify that we can get enough dose to get the effect we want without the side effects. So that's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, that's great. And how far along do you think that we are with the JAN 101 vis-a-vis, having it for people to use on a more, a more regular basis? Or, I know that the FDA, I know that your trial is for this coming year. How far away do you really think that this kind of a breakthrough is?
Yeah, great question. So in the world of pharmaceuticals, we are far to the extent that this would be considered a later stage biotech asset. Now, when you look at FDA approval, it's done in two phases, a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. There have been 2 phase 2 studies already done on the product. We're going to do what we call a phase 2B, which is a large phase 2 study that will be starting in 2021, so just coming up here, hopefully in a few months. And after that, we'll have to do a phase 3 study. All along, we've been communicating with the FDA, and typically after a phase 3 study, if we get good enough endpoints from the phase 2B and a phase 3 studies, we should be able to submit what's called a new drug application to get it approved. And then, obviously it would be on the market, and, your physician could write a prescription for it at that time. So realistically speaking, we'll run 2 more studies
And I think people don't understand that there are different reasons for the different studies, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. I know I'm not sure even myself, but I think one is efficacy, one is safety, one is dosing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's really good. And when you think about what the FDA is looking for, it's safety and efficacy primarily. In the phase 1, you're looking at basic safety, tolerability, blood levels, absorption, something called a PKA, which is a pharmacokinetics of the drug that tells you how much drug is in your bloodstream and all that. You have to run some toxicology studies, and there's some animal modeling that has to occur before you get into humans. And then, you look at, of course, efficacy to make sure it works in a large number of patients. So you have to run statistics to make sure people got good results. And that's what goes through those trials, and it is a very long process and an extremely expensive process, even just to get to where Jan 1 is today. So the nice thing is Jan 1 has already cleared a lot of very large hurdles. And so we know from our previous studies that the drug has been working, at least in the cohorts that we've been seeing. We've been getting the results that we'd like to see. These results have been verified by, multiple clinical sites that have participated in studies. So now we know we just have to execute on larger studies to prove the safety point even further. And so from a risk standpoint, it's been de-risked quite a bit.
Doctor, how many people have been involved in the study?
Well, so it depends on each study. So the one coming up, we're going to have 300 patients. So 100, we're going to have 3 different trial arms. It'll be 100 per trial arm. There's a 40 and an 80 milligram dose, and then a placebo arm that we have to study. The other studies have ranged anywhere from, small 10-patient studies to 60, 50 patient studies. Stuff like that is where, trying to get the information we need to clear the FDA hurdles. The phase 3 or later stage studies are typically larger in patient numbers, and for a drug like this, it's usually around 300 patients.
And do you think that you'll take on a strategic partner for this, or you'll self-finance it through offerings of stock, or how do you see it proceeding? Because I know that it's expensive.
Yeah, it is. But you think about Jan 101 and where they're at, or Jan 1 and with their drug, it's amazing for them to have such a late-stage product with a huge market out there that's still unattached. So, for example, if you're an investor of Jan 1, you have multiple exit opportunities. You can partner with Big Pharma. You could raise your own capital. You could take it another phase, and then you have all these partnership opportunities available for you. You could sell the drug yourself. And a lot of times when you look at these publicly traded, small cap biotechs, they've already signed, exit deals, earlier on. So your exit opportunity is capped.
What I have found over the last 5 or 10 years is that, there was an old expression when oil was $100 a barrel that oil companies were drilling for oil on Wall Street, meaning that it was cheaper to buy a company with proven production than it was to go out and explore yourself with the risk and the expense. And in the biotech business, almost every single day there is a home run and a disaster du jour. And what I've seen is that a lot of the companies, the bigger companies, keep their eye on little companies that are doing R&D in an area they're interested in, and then, of course, as soon as they, produce results, they get bought for 100 or 200 or even 300% of where they were trading the day before, because that seems to be the cheapest way to buy a pipeline without spending the money.
Yeah, not only that, it's been de-risked for them to some extent.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already been through the phases, the animal studies. They've already engaged the FDA, and you look at where Jan 1 is now. I mean, they're at a really good stage to, pursue opportunities like that. And if they do another study with a large study and get similar results as previous ones, which we expect to get, I think it'd be pretty exciting for shareholders and for the company, but also for my patients, just to have an opportunity to have, a drug that's non-addicting and non-sedating and actually can treat pain and potentially improve nerve function and, all those things. But the other thing that's really...
Would you ever foresee a situation where you had some more positive information available from the trials where they would orphan it because of the extreme need for non-opioids or the extreme need for a vascular part of COVID? I mean, is that a possibility?
It is. What could be a possibility is something called getting a breakthrough designation by the FDA, and you get some fast track designation opportunities, for pain, for PAD, because these are unmet medical needs. But honestly, even right around the corner, COVID-19, right? So I'm going to be doing a trial here in Dayton coming up just in probably a month or two on COVID patients to see if sodium nitrite Jan 101 can improve those patients' vascular health that have the disease, and see if, does this improve their outcome? And if it does, I mean, that's a huge opportunity immediately, actually, for the company, for shareholders, for patients. So I'd love to see something like that work out, and hopefully we'd have...
Well, as a shareholder, me too.
Yeah.
Well, and what I think is kind of
a new tool that we really haven't done or thought of in treating the disease, right? I mean, the way we're treating COVID-19, this is a completely new paradigm.
Oh, and you get every little company and their brothers just making announcements, and you see some of these stocks going from $1 or $2 to $22 or $32 before coming back down to earth. I mean, as I said, it's, every single day you see something from a company that you never heard of before.
Dr. Soin, as far as that goes, in a way, you talk about the COVID test coming up. If for some reason this is just like a massive success, could the FDA speed up things for Jan 1?
Yeah, they could do a breakthrough therapy designation or something like that, or there are some fast track opportunities. I mean, it'd be important for us to actually get some data in the trial, though.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's amazing when you think that you've been able to take the steps you already have in a relatively short period of time, if you will, and succeed as an investment as well. I think it's amazing.
Yes, thank you.
And the stock has done remarkably well all by itself. I mean, it sat in that $3 area, and would every time you would put out an announcement, you'd see a big pop in it and interest in it. And when I say interest in it, I mean, large amounts of volume. I think the stock only has about 2 million shares outstanding, and there have been days where it's traded 3 and 4 times that, and had great runs. And right now it's trading for $7.30, which is a substantial gain for my people and myself. But it just seems like the upside is really unlimited at this point in time. And I think when you spin off whichever way it goes, whatever remains Jan 1, I think has a terrific future, price-wise. And, the opioid side of it, the COVID side of it is very expensive. The opioid side of it really addressing an issue that, I would say, if you think about it, with the percentage of people who have contracted COVID versus the number of people who are on opioids, I would say COVID is big, but it's not as big as that is, and it's not as dangerous as that is. A lot of people survive COVID. I mean, unless you are in a group, that is dramatically disadvantaged. For example, my wife had a liver transplant 6 years ago, so she's on anti-rejection meds, so it would be a problem for her. But you take the average individual who doesn't have that kind of restriction or disadvantage, and opioids is much more prevalent in the real world.
Yeah. When, Doctor, after the trials, realistically, what are you looking at to get Gen 1 on the market, time-wise?
Time-wise? Well, so much of that's difficult to predict because it's based on, how the FDA sort of looks at things. But typically after we complete the trials we need, which is the phase 2B and a phase 3, we have to submit something called a new drug application to the FDA, and there's time to put that application together, and then the FDA has to review it, and then they'll approve that. So 2 more trials, and then the submission of the new drug application is what it would take, and trials. And
so it's in the future, but not the distant future.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and from a drug standpoint, this would be considered to be more of a late stage asset if you look at how biotech looks at these things.
As a total layman on all of this, Doctor, this just seems like you've got this great concept, it's working, yet there seems to be just so much red tape, governmental red tape.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm sure the government's just trying to protect the public from harm. But, I mean, that's why drugs are so expensive. When you go to a pharmacy and you wonder, gosh, why does this cost so much? Well, probably because it took several years and tens or hundreds of millions of dollars for it to even reach the market. And the drug company probably failed 3 or 4 times to get that one there. So, it's difficult.
I'll bet.
Yeah. I think that really the drug companies, I know drugs are expensive, but I think that painting them all with the same brush as, guys like the guy in New York who went to jail. I mean, you can't paint everybody with the same brush, and a lot of companies spend a lot of money trying to do the right thing for the public and just don't make it. There's still no cure for the common cold or cancer. Most people. So everybody who's been working on those things for the last 30 or 40 years has booked a lot of losses and used a lot of cash, and they still have to survive, so they have to make it up somewhere. Well, this is great, Doc. I really appreciate you taking the time today, and if there's anything else you'd like to say about your company or what you guys are doing, feel free, and I'd certainly love to have you back on the show for an update. As I said, I'm a shareholder. The people that I advise are shareholders, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the company continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me. I'd love to come back, and I appreciate your great questions. I just want to mention that I truly believe in this product as a physician. I mean, something that I personally would like to prescribe to my patients, myself, my family members, or people, and that's a big endorsement. And I just think it's a unique opportunity for an investor to participate in a late-stage biotech at, such a reasonable market cap when you consider the market opportunity. And, the possibility of some help with COVID-19 is also interesting. But even the core product lines are very compelling. So I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so
and enjoy
much.
your dentist appointment.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
I've
I'm
got
sitting
one.
in the waiting room.
Oh, boy. I got one question for you, though. How do we get your book?
Doc?
Hello, doctor.
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Oh, how do we get your book?
How do you get? Oh boy! So that book I wrote when I was 19.
Whoa!
I think 1997. It was available on Amazon for a while, but it's been out of print for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's so apropos now. That's the title, so apropos now. Failing health care system. Wow. That's amazing. Well, doctor, you got to come back. This sounds truly amazing, and you've got quite the product at Jan 1.
And just so everybody knows, a replay of this interview will actually go on the Jan 1 website in the next day or so. So if anybody missed it, they'll certainly be able to listen to it again. Sure,
and yeah, we'll get that up to you a little bit later today, Charles. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, doctor, we'll be talking with you soon. Good luck with the trials.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Take it easy, Doc.
Oh,
okay,
good guy.
So I have a couple of more things to say, and the most important one is that I am a shareholder, and this was not a paid interview, so we're not getting paid for having the doctor and the company on. And I want to make that very clear, since I would really like to continue to find companies like this and put the information out to the public and to my readers. And I honestly don't see any way that this is not a $15 or $20 stock. That's my opinion. And at $7.50, I think it represents a pretty interesting value. And this company is tiny in a very big space.
What is their stock symbol, Charles?
JAN.
Oh, gee, what a surprise.
Easy enough, huh?
What a surprise.
Oh. And I also want to remind everybody that you can get this information and all of the information that I put out, including the pre-opening comments on YouTube, the closing comments, the daily note, just by going to www.greatwize, with Z's, GreatWizeOZ.com. And all of the information is there. My trading is 100% transparent. Every trade for the last 5 years is listed there. The good, the bad, the ugly. And right now we're up about 28 or 29% year to date. And that was after a down 7% week last week, which is an unusually large loss. But in the 2 weeks coming up to that, we had an up $1,500 week. So feel free to go to the Discord room. That link is also on that same GreatWizeOz.com. And I look forward to coming back and talking. The market right now is down about 169 in the Dow. It's up $18 in the NASDAQ. And the S&P is down $1.61. One of my favorite stocks that we are very long is Alibaba, BABA, and it started Friday morning down around the 260 area, and right now it's trading 288, and that's up $12 today. For anybody who's interested, Apple is down about $6. The record date for their 4-for-1 split was yesterday's close, and the stock will be in their accounts on the 31st. And that's all I have to say.
Hey, that's a lot. You know, I just noticed, thinking of Jan 1 and the possible COVID implications. The FDA today, I was just scrolling on the screen, is dropping the 14-day quarantine for COVID. Which,
Oh, good.
yeah. Well,
I guess.
yeah. Who knows? You know, it's like, you know, you see all these videos from frat and sorority houses, and you just think, oh, yeah, kids
Well,
just
you know,
being
Greg,
kids,
I
right?
read in a local paper up here that there was a wedding 3 weeks ago in Maine where they overextended. I think the state of Maine said 50 people, and this group had about 80 people, and of those 80 people, there are 52 confirmed cases.
Oh, no.
So it's far from over, but, you know, I know we're hyper-vigilant here because of my wife.
You bet.
But
You bet.
I will tell you clearly, you know, doing the right thing, social distancing, you know, wearing the mask, I mean, this all is proven to help, and it's just stupidity not to do it. I mean, it doesn't take any effort. My thought, though, is it must be really difficult for the police when they're out on the street to not be able to see somebody's whole face.
Yeah, and everybody's wearing a mask. Yes. Well, you know, of course, I joke about that. Do you wear the mask into your bank? But, you know, down here,
Right.
down here, you can't get into your bank in a lot of cases where the banks, you know, drive-throughs are open, but their lobbies are still closed in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you the last time I was, and I do almost all the shopping, and I'm not a big put-it-in-the-freezer kind of person, and so I would shop, you know, almost every day or every other day, and I'm on Amazon Prime and getting stuff from Whole Foods every third day, and, you know, it's a great convenience, and I'm going to make a comment about weight. While everybody is gaining weight, I am actually losing weight on being quarantined because I don't get to stop and pick up that candy bar at the checkout counter or you know, Twinkies or stuff. I've actually been ordering good food.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Charles, welcome back, and we'll see you every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and looking forward to it, and thank the good doctor for being with us, Jan 1. And once again, it is WizeOz.com.
Great Wise Oz.
Great Wise Oz. I'll get it.
With Z's.
With Z's. You got it. Charles, welcome back.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Charles Moskowitz. Money Info right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie. Talking the Treasure Coast. Webcaster to the world on TuneIn and Google Home and Alexa.